The Great Lakes Naval Base was originally a 39-building base that was approved by President Theodore Roosevelt in 1904, with construction starting in 1905 and ending in 1911. Construction was supervised by Navy Captain Albert R. Ross, with architect Jarvis Hunt assigning the base, and Lieutenant George A. McKay acting as a civil engineer. The original plot of land was 72 acres wide, and the team had a budget of $3.5 million, which is equivalent to $95.3 million today. Once finished, President William Howard Taft dedicated the base in 1911, with the first recruit arriving that same year. World War I was a very busy time for Great Lakes. In 1917, before the US entered the war, the base had 39 buildings, more than 165 acres, and around 1,500 sailors. By the end of the war, the base had 776 buildings, 1,200 acres of land, and had in total trained over 125,000 sailors. Things had slowed down through the 1930s. While some renovations had been done, which include the construction of a harbor and the closing of some buildings, training had slowed and eventually stopped by 1933, with the base closing down for around 2 years, only opening when local businessmen and Illinois congressional delegates lobbied for it. Things changed, however, in 1941. Once the US entered World War II, the base saw another huge amount of recruits. In a span of 6 months, the number of recruits went from 6,000 to 68,000. In September 1942, more than 100,000 sailors trained here. The base itself also grew, getting 1,600 more acres in 10 months. Great Lakes hosted the first African American recruits. In early 1944, the Golden 13, which is a group composed of the first African American commissioned and warrant officers, had left Great Lakes to go to their assignments. Apart from them, 1 million of the 4 million sailors who were on active duty during the war trained at Great Lakes. During the 1940s and the 1970s, nothing much happened at Great Lakes in terms of recruit training. These years were full of buildings being added, replaced, or demolished. Some of these buildings include the addition of the U.S. Naval Gunnery School in 1954, which was designed by Bruce Graham, who also designed the Willis Tower and the John Hancock Center. It was made of all glass and steel, and at the time was said to be the largest all-glass structure in the world. It was demolished in 2012, mainly due to the transition from hands-on training to computer-based training, and the addition of the Great Lakes Naval Hospital in 1960, which replaced Building 1H. This hospital had years of experience under its belt, which included the Vietnam War. This building service ended in 2010 due to the Captain James A. Naval Federal Healthcare Center becoming the official hospital of the base. It was officially destroyed 3 years later in 2013. But now we enter in the time frame of the riot. Although it happened almost 40 years ago, there are still many theories going around as to why it happened. We will examine the most backed up theory: the harassment of the recruits at the hands of locals and business owners. Now, what could possibly happen to a group of well-disciplined sailors that causes them to riot? Well, there seems to be a bit of a snowball effect. You see, the sailors had allegedly been mistreated by local bar and restaurant owners, along with extra harassment from prostitutes and drug dealers on the street. The catalyst came when a group of civilians allegedly entered the base through a hole in the fence and beat up a recruit. Local police, business owners, and even sailors refuted the claims. They said that the sailors got better treatment than most other customers. One sailor who was interviewed said that the claim was started by troublemakers who've always been troublemakers. The sailor, who remained unnamed during the interview, also said, "There was a party going on and maybe some of our guys tried to bust the party. It cost $5 to get in and they didn't want to pay the $5. Well, it seems to be the case of the boy who cried wolf, or, more accurately, the spoiled boy who cried wolf. These recruits, who were so used to getting discounts due to their Navy status, dishonored such Navy status by not wanting to pay what everyone else did. But why such drastic measures of revenge? What other reasons were there for the sailors to get so heated? Well, according to the unnamed sailor, the graduates were disappointed with how their future was being handled. They were allegedly being told to wait and do low-end jobs. Some would stay at the base for long periods of time while not getting a word about assignments. With all that in mind, the sailors began to have what the previously mentioned soldier called riot fever. They climbed the 10-foot-high fence and began to wreak havoc on their surroundings. They then began to clash with local and Navy police. At the end of the first night, only 16 of the 400 rioting soldiers were arrested, and 5 were injured. Although a curfew of 8 p.m. was set for the sailors the following day, many of them disobeyed and still threw rocks at the base and local police who had been stationed outside of the base. Once outside, they reportedly began with attacking the cop cars that were standing on guard on the streets, managing to overturn 1. Police arrested 5 sailors on charges of mob action, and another 16 were arrested by naval officers for curfew violations. In total, 58 court-martials were conducted, and only 19 were found not guilty. This incident also led to the replacement of the base commander, Captain Robert D. Colvin, who was replaced by Rear Admiral Thomas L. Malone Jr. Now, what's the lesson in all of this? Well, this event had major repercussions for the base, which are still felt to this day. Hopefully the new recruits learn a valuable lesson in modesty, patience, and obedience.
If you can use some exotic booze, there's a bar in far Bombay. Come fly with me, let's fly, let's fly.